Regret is a peculiar thing. It doesn't just sit quietly in the corner of your mind. It festers, growing louder with time until it drowns out everything else. For years, I've carried this ache, this gnawing sense of loss over something I can never take back. It wasn't just rejection, it was dismissal. A careless dismissal of someone who mattered more than I realized at the time. Tonight, I want to say the words I should have said long ago. Because silence hasn't healed me, it's only made the wound deeper. Maybe sharing my story will help me finally let go, or at least forgive myself for what I did. I remember the first time I met him like it was yesterday. He had this quiet confidence about him, gentle but sure, thoughtful without being overbearing. We bonded instantly, talking for hours about everything and nothing. He listened intently when I spoke, his eyes never straying from mine. There was something comforting about him, something that made me feel seen in ways I hadn't before. At the time, though, I dismissed those feelings as mere chemistry or fleeting attraction. I told myself he was just a friend, convincing myself I wasn't ready for anything more. Looking back now, I realize how wrong I was and how much I underestimated what we could have been. The day he confessed his feelings, I froze. Part of me wanted to say yes, to let him into my life completely. But fear held me back. Fear of vulnerability, fear of losing myself in someone else, fear of getting hurt. So I chose the coward's way out. I told him I didn't feel the same, that I valued our friendship too much to risk ruining it. The lie tasted bitter even as I said it, but I convinced myself it was easier than admitting the truth, that I was scared. Watching the light fade from his eyes crushed me, but I masked my guilt with excuses. It's better this way, I told myself. But deep down, I knew I'd made a mistake, one I couldn't undo, no matter how hard I tried. Afterward, denial became my shield. I replayed the conversation in my head endlessly, twisting my words until they sounded reasonable, even justified. He'll move on, I assured myself. He deserves someone braver, someone better. But the truth was uglier. I'd rejected him, not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much. Admitting that would mean confronting parts of myself I wasn't ready to face. The insecurities, the walls I'd built around my heart. Instead, I buried my feelings under layers of rationalization, telling myself I'd done the right thing. Each night, though, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the guilt whispered louder than any justification ever could. Loneliness has a way of forcing you to confront truths you'd rather ignore. Sitting on that bench, surrounded by reminders of love and connection, I realized how empty my life had become. Friends came and went, dates ended in disappointment, but none of it filled the void he'd left behind. I missed him, not just the person he was, but the future we might have shared. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I'd let fear dictate my choices, and now I was paying the price. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully acknowledge the depth of my regret. It was excruciating, but also freeing. Seeing him happy with someone else felt like a knife twisting in my chest. At first, I told myself I was glad. He deserved happiness, after all. But jealousy crept in uninvited, gnawing at my resolve. Why hadn't I fought for him? Why hadn't I trusted myself enough to take a chance? As I watched them together, laughing and smiling like I'd never seen him do with me, I realized how much I'd lost. Not just him, but the possibility of us. Every glance, every touch between them reminded me of what I'd thrown away. And worse still, I knew it was entirely my fault. Writing that letter felt like opening a wound I'd kept bandaged for years. Each word poured onto the page, carried a piece of my soul, apologies, confessions, regrets. I wanted him to know how much he'd meant to me, how deeply I'd hurt both of us by pushing him away. Yet even as I wrote, doubt crept in. Would he even read it? Would he care? Or would he dismiss it as too little, too late? Still, I needed to try. Keeping these words bottled up inside me was killing me slowly. Finishing the letter didn't bring relief, not immediately, but it gave me a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could begin to heal. Meeting him again was terrifying. What if he hated me? What if he saw right through my apology and called me out for being selfish? But he didn't. When I handed him the letter, his expression softened in a way I hadn't expected. He listened patiently as I stumbled through my explanation, occasionally nodding or offering small reassurances. By the end, I was crying openly, apologizing profusely for the pain I'd caused. To my surprise, he forgave me, not because he owed me anything, but because he genuinely seemed to understand. That moment changed everything for me. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me permission to start letting go. Therapy became my safe space, a place where I could unpack the layers of fear and insecurity that had led me to reject him in the first place. Through our sessions, I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. Admitting you're scared, that you don't have all the answers, that takes strength. Slowly, I began to rebuild my sense of self-worth, learning to trust not just others, but also myself. The journey wasn't easy. It was messy, painful, and often exhausting, but it was worth it. For the first time in years, I felt whole again. Today, I walk taller, breathe easier, and live more authentically. Regret will always linger, for missed opportunities, for moments I wish I could undo, but it no longer defines me. Instead, it motivates me to honor the lessons I've learned, that love requires bravery, that apologies are acts of grace, and that forgiveness begins within. As I stroll through this park, feeling the warmth of sunlight on my skin, I remind myself that healing isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But it's also beautiful. Thank you for listening to my story.